With 3 games left and potentially a bowl game, it is Grayson James time in Chestnut Hill.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of 247's Eagle Insider. You can check out my work there, and you can follow me on all the social media. On today's show, we're going to look at hockey and basketball. We're going to talk about recruiting, which has got some good and bad news that we're going to get into both of those. And the biggest topic of the day, who's going to be starting a quarterback? I have my thoughts on that. We'll kick that off first. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. So Boston College goes ahead. They win 37-31 against Syracuse. If you want my full recap of that, go check out Locked On Boston Postcast. I talked all about that episode that on Saturday from the press box. Today's episode is not going to be wrapping up that game. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to wrap it up with Mitch. But I want to talk about quarterbacks right now because there's a big controversy, maybe not even a controversy, but there's a big decision that Bill O'Brien's going to have to make, and that is who's going to be the starting quarterback, especially, let's just give it one day game at a time, against SMU next weekend in Dallas. And without a doubt, and this is a surprise even to me that I would be saying this because I've been the biggest Thomas Castellanos supporter over the last 2 years, I think it's time that they need to go with Grayson James here. I think Grayson James is the answer for at least this week because what I've seen out of Thomas Castellanos the last couple of weeks and the difference in what James's gameplay has been like, I think James is better suited to run this offense right now. And I think Thomas Castellanos is his confidence is cooked. He has not looked so despondent and so just overwhelmed. He just doesn't look like the same guy that we saw against SMU even last year. So to me, this answer is simple. You have to go with Grayson James here. Now I'm going to start this off by saying nothing I have seen out of James has made me think that he is the answer long term. Against Western Kentucky, remember, he threw a really, really bad pass. He had trouble running the offense. And yes, he won, but a lot of that was on Donovan Azaraku. Now, credit to him, he was a steady guiding force against Syracuse. He let them run. He threw that great pass to Jeremiah Franklin. Good pass for any quarterback, but he was wide open. And he did all the things that you needed to do. And that's at this point, I think BC has found what their identity needs to be moving forward, which is a very big power running offense that we saw against Syracuse. Will it work every week? Probably not. But when you have teams like UNC coming up and even potentially Pitt, you may be able to get some yards on that. And Grayson James is a better suited quarterback to do that. We watched this happen with Castellanos on Saturday. All he had to do was hand the ball off and that offense would be fine. But whether it was RPOs or, options or whatever, he kept finding plays that kept stalling out drives. James did not do that. Credit to Grayson James, what he did was very specifically and methodically ran down the field. And he only had to do a few different things, but that's okay. If BC is going to go back to basically Steve Addazio football just to win games at this point, I'm totally fine with that. And I think the best chance to do that is under Grayson James. Because your power is in the running game. And right now it's going to be Kai Robichaux and Jordan McDonald. Watching Turbo Richard on the sideline on Saturday, it doesn't look like he'll be available for a little while. He was limping around quite a bit. So I'm not sure he's going to be someone you're going to see much of. But that two-headed running attack, very David Bailey, A.J. Dillon-esque. They're not A.J. Dillon, but you know what I mean, right? That is best suited for Grayson James. Because Grayson James can then make a few small throws. He can do all of that. Now, I'm going to say this out loud. If he's the starter on Saturday and if they have to lean on him to win that game, BC's going to have a tough going at that. SMU has the 5th ranked rushing defense. They are very stout against the run. That might mean that James has to make more plays, and we've seen he's not the most accurate quarterback, but this is one game at a time. That being said, he should get the starts for at least the rest of the year. I'm also not sold that he's the long-term answer either. I'm thinking if there's a transfer quarterback next year that is more the style of what Bill O'Brien might want, you bring him in here and you have him compete with James. Because I said it on Saturday's episode, I would not be surprised if this is Thomas Castellanos' last go as the starting quarterback. You might see him come in if there's issues, but I'm getting the sense that, just from my gut, this is just my gut, that this might be it for him. And so I don't think you have the answer on your staff. I don't think next year you can go out there and roll with just Grayson James. I'm not there yet. For folks that are already overblowing, what would he throw? 7, 8 passes on Saturday and like 11 the week before against Western Kentucky. I caution you to, slow your roll a little bit with what you're expecting from him. He did a great job against Syracuse, but don't expect him to all of a sudden turn into the next Matt Ryan. Don't expect him to become this elite passer that's going to be able to do things that your offense wasn't able to do under Thomas Castellanos. That pass to Lewis Bond, that was a touchdown. He missed him by a lot. So their issues are still there. I don't expect him to be perfect, but I'm going to say it again. I think Grayson James is your answer going forward. I think this is the guy that BC needs to rally behind and go with at quarterback. And I think he's going to be. I think there's no way after pulling him last week with whatever injury or leg injury he had. He was back on the sideline later. But Thomas Castellanos, I just cannot see him coming back after that. I think Bill made his choice, and I think they're going to roll with Grayson James moving forward. I expect that practices will be closed this week, and I expect that Bill will give you nothing in terms of understanding who the quarterback is going to, because honestly, I know you guys all want to know it, but what good is it for him to tell SMU who the quarterback is going to be? He's going to keep that private. So I'm assuming practice is going to be closed, and I'm assuming he's going to be very tight-lipped when it comes to press conferences. In a minute, we'll talk more about recruiting, but before we do that, I want to tell you about our good old friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel and get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Say you're watching a game and you missed the opening spread and you're looking at the Giants are looking pretty bad out there. I'm going to go take a live spread to see if I think Carolina's going to jump ahead in this game. You can find all that. The live spreads, actually, it's funny to watch while you're watching a game because, an interception, and then the spread changes. Or, a touchdown, and the spread changes. It happens so fast. So head over to FanDuel.com and get in to start. So when you get in the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. As I said, find the Locked On Boston postcast to check out my initial reaction to the game. They also have Patriots on there, the Celtics, the Bruins. They have everything that you want if you're a Boston sports fan, and I'm included in there. So check that out when you get a chance on YouTube. And it's on my feed for podcasts. So you got to check it out on YouTube if you want to get all those. It's a great little addition to our network if you want to check that out. And also want to thank all our everydayers that have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. You are the lifeblood of this podcast, and I want to thank each and every one of you that made us your first listen, because that is super important. Thank you. Now, it's time for some recruiting news, and I got 2 bad and 1 good here. Let's get into the 2 bad and the 1 good. Maybe we'll like it a sandwich, right? Let's make this a turkey sandwich. We'll start with the bread is the bad news. The turkey is the good news. So let's start with one piece of bad news first. The biggest surprise, and I say that sarcastically, was a decommit this weekend from Grayson, Georgia defensive tackle Josiah Victor, if you just know him by his more formal name. Well, Josiah Victor, he committed to BC back in June and has spent the better part of 2 to 3 months visiting other programs, even though he was committed. He took, many people were freaking out about that. And I get it because it just did not look good. But he was at Georgia. He was he was at Georgia Tech. I think he went to South Carolina at one point. He was doing everything. I mean, Grayson, Georgia football is one of the best programs in the country. So this is a guy who's got late bloomer. He's trying to maximize himself. Up until that point, all those unofficial visits, I had been told and had heard everything was still fine. Unofficial visits can happen. I mean, there's guys that you wouldn't be surprised that are not on my visitors list at BC that are committed elsewhere that just come to check out the game. They're not being recruited by BC, but they're there and they're committed to other schools. It just happens. It's part of the deal. It's not that big of a deal there. That being said, he did take his first official visit since we're committing to BC at NC State last week. And that's where the decommitment happened. For folks that have been following this is not a big surprise. I mean, he clearly was trying, there's, either he or people near him wanted him to try some other schools out. He did. He finally decommitted and he's gone. Now, Boston College, this is the lowest ranked recruit you had. On 247. I don't think that's an accurate rating because I think, he was offered by Georgia, offered by Georgia Tech, offered by NC State. He had a pretty big offer list. But you're now down a defensive tackle. You have 2 others already committed, though. So that's the positive side of all this. You have Sterling Sanders, the flip from Georgia Southern from last week, excuse me. And then you have Micah Amity, who is arguably the biggest cheerleader of this class from Zavarian Brothers in Massachusetts. So you still have 2 really good defensive tackles. I know folks are going to be a little bit snippy because Sanders was committed to Georgia Southern, but I invite you to go watch his tape. He is a beast. He is a physical monster back there. I think it's that's a kind of couched this. I would tell you too, Sanders did not commit because this was a protection from losing Victor. It was, they wanted 3 defensive tackles. They've already lost. Nigel Tate has not played. I think he's no longer with the team. Caleb Jones is gone. He medically retired, and you're going to lose Cam Horsley. So you got to restock there. You need 3 defensive tackles. You might get one in the transfer portal, but you have 2 already. So this was not a big surprise to anybody. I think we all expected it. It was a nice recruit to get at first, and he did seem very much into BC. I mean, if you look at some of his pictures, he's talking about Georgia in a BC jersey at one point, or a T-shirt, but he's gone. All right, now good news. Over the weekend, on Monday, Spencer Dickow tweeted out one of his, we got him, or, welcome home. I think it was exactly what it said, meaning that they landed another commitment. Now, to me, there's only one name that probably fits who that is, and that is Jayden Fry, a defensive edge from Rollsville, North Carolina. He was on his official visit this weekend at Boston College. All signs were that things went really well. I expected he's committed to South Florida. I expect him to. I would be very surprised if he doesn't flip to BC. And that's great. He's lengthy. He is 6'4"ish. And I think he's going to be a real good defensive end for BC. And that gives you 2. You have Fry and you have Israel Oladapopo, who is from Noblesville, Indiana, who committed earlier in the cycle. So that is hopefully going to be a big get. You also landed a punter later in the week in Andy Quinn from Ireland. After watching Ivan Zavenko barely kick a football, and I mean, no offense to Liam Connor, but he's still hitting it like 35 yards. I think everyone's hoping that this kid could be the punter of the future, because you definitely need some changes there because it's not working right now. I watched the NFL on Sunday, and I was watching the Bears and the Patriots. And I know it's unfair, but watching them booming 50, 60-yard punts and watching our guys barely get it over the heads of the defensive tackles or hitting it 30 yards, it makes me miss because it's so important. When you have a team like BC, you got to be able to punt the ball. You got to be able to flip the field. I go back to those times where you had Grant Carlson. He wasn't the best punter in the world, but he could flip the field when you needed to, and he wasn't such a liability as it is right now. So Andy Quinn from Ireland, he committed. And then more bad news. Well, I told you, it's a sandwich. We got the good news in between the bad news. And the bad news is BC probably is going to lose another commitment. and that is DePaul Catholic running back Nolan James. Nolan James was the first commitment to this class, which is actually a really funny issue that keeps going on with BC, where they get these guys early and then just lose them. He committed to Jeff Hafley, so he was originally a half commit, but he has been. I know the staff really liked him. I know that they were hoping to keep him. He's had a really good senior season at DePaul Catholic, but he had been sticking with BC, even though he had major offers elsewhere. He still was not. I had heard he had offers from other big Power Four schools. Excuse me, Power Four. Now I got to get used to that. And he still wasn't even announcing them. He just kept them silent. There's other schools that definitely were looking at him, but one school popped up that he couldn't say no to, and he had to check it out, and that was Notre Dame. He took an official visit to Notre Dame, and once that happened, I was like, goodbye. That's going to happen. And especially that he got to go watch Notre Dame absolutely throttle Florida State 52-3. Tom Loy and I both put in crystal balls to have him flip. BC has two court running backs. They just got Bo McCormick from BB&N last week, and they have Mackay Dodd from Catholic Memorial. Both are very good running backs, but this is going to be two decommitments. Now, usually in a clash, it's going to happen. This is all normal stuff in recruiting. I know some of you hate it, but this is what happens. This is part of when you want to play with the big boys. This kind of stuff is going to happen, and you're doing it too, right? You just flipped a whole bunch of guys from some lesser schools to you, whether it's Sanders or Fry, or even Shaker Reisig, who was committed to Utah. This is all just part of the game, and the fact that they only have two decommitments at this point really shows to me that this class is pretty much set. Could there be more? Sure. I'm not naive to say that this is going to be the end of it, but you now have two, and I'm not sure if they're going to fill those spots. It's not a positional need type of thing. You're going to lose two running backs next year in Trayshawn Ward and Kai Robichaux, but maybe they have tape on other guys. I know that behind the scenes they're definitely looking at some other guys at different positions, but we'll have to wait to see what they do there. So one decommit that we know of, that's Josiah Victor. One that we think is going to happen, Nolan James, and a commitment. There's no other silence. This is where the class is at. It's ranked 47th. It's going to drop a little bit when Nolan James flips, but that's where things are at right now. Now, in our final segment, I want to talk a little bit about basketball, hockey, and I want to give props to field hockey. I'll give you all that info in just a moment. Game Time is the place I go when I want to get tickets to concerts, theater, or sporting events. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. When I go for a BC game, when I go with one game a year as a fan, I use Game Time because I know exactly what I need. I'm going to get tickets and no added fees on those all-in prices. When you find tickets with all-in prices, there's no surprises. It's all right there. And with their seat finder, you know exactly where you're going to sit. So again, when you go to a game, I don't get to go to many games. I got two kids. It's hard for me to get out there. But something like Game Time, make sure that when I get that opportunity, my wife and I are not wasting our time in bad seats. So check out Game Time if you get a chance to as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create a code and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. When you're done with this episode, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. But also go to check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono talk everything BC and ACC related. I'm sure they're going to talk about the Syracuse game. I hope they would. Check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, over the weekend, BC football was not the only event. And I would be remiss to not mention the BC field hockey team, who was in the ACC championship game on Friday and lost 5-0 to UNC. I want to shout out the girls. UNC is a powerhouse. They've won 5 straight ACC championships. They are probably the favorites to win the national title. But these girls, they put together a great season. Congratulations to them. And they're off to the NCAA tournament, where on Friday next week, they are going to play against Princeton at St. Joseph's in Philadelphia. That's a big game for them. So good luck to that. I already retweeted a bunch of stuff about them. Good luck to the women's field hockey team as they go to the NCAA tournament. Anytime we can talk about success here on Locked On BC, we are going to do that. Now, let's talk a little bit about basketball. First of all, I want to talk about women's basketball because they are really, really playing well right now. They're 2-0, and something you don't expect out of BC is those games where they play lesser teams and just pummel the crap out of them. They've just beat Sacred Heart, scoring over 100 points. I think it was 102-58 on last week on Thursday. We have coverage now on Eagle Insider for some of our students are covering the game. I love that. But credit to Joanna McNamee. This on at 2:00 today. They're playing Northeastern. This team is very, very good. And I think they're going to make some noise. They've got talent up and down with, Dontavia Wagner is obviously really good. JoJo Lacey. They've Athena Tomlinson. They've got a bunch of girls that are really, really good. I think they're going to be an exciting team. And that cannot be said about the men's team, who played on Friday against VCU, a game I thought was going to be a tough one for BC, but I didn't expect BC to look so freaking bad. They are, if this is what BC is going to put out there this year, this team is not winning an ACC game. They're just not. They cannot do anything on offense. Their defense let 47 points up in the second half, and they were terrible rebounding. Terrible. So I don't know what Earl Grant's got planned to fix this, but what I have noticed about this team, you have no one on this team that can shoot. And when they do set their offense, it's a lot of just standing around and no motion or rhythm to it. They have nobody that can count on to make a bucket when you need it. You have it's just stale. It's bad. And when you're playing a team like VCU, who's going to be just like every ACC team you play, they made them look foolish out there. And I'm very worried about the future of this program right now. Like this, you lost to them. You get a big test this week against Temple on Friday. If they go out there and lay a stinker against Temple, strap in, folks, because this is going to be a rough season. But they got to be able to turn it around. And I got to say, the biggest disappointment, I know he broke his nose before the first game, is Dion Brown. Like, that was the guy I expected to be your scorer. He hasn't done anything. And speaking of doing nothing, Chaz Kelly, in 2 games as your starting point guard, has 0 points. He's putting up an incredible stat line. Like, I don't know how you can keep starting him. Like, he's a humongous offensive liability. He adds nothing to the offense. Lots of backs to the backboard. And, it's an indictment on, the point guard play, but they had 4 assists against VCU. 4. How does that even happen? So Earl Grant, he's got a lot of issues going on with this team. It was disheartening to watch them lay such a big egg against VCU. And let's flip it, get a little positive before we go. BC hockey, they're a train right now. They played number 5 Maine at home. And on Friday, they had a game. They fall behind 2-0. They're down 2-0 in the third period. And they score 3 times to win 3-2. And for all those folks like me included that were kind of disappointed at how BC fans were at the football game, the hockey team shows you that this fan base, if you can win, will get behind you. They were absolutely nuts. And I think it was a whiteout game. And so Ryan Leonard, I think, hit the game winner. They knock off number 5 Maine. They go on Sunday, they play again. And it was just a complete team effort. You get Ryan Leonard again with another goal. And Jacob Fowler pitches a shutout. So you played a murderer's row to start this out-of-conference schedule. You played Michigan State, who's pretty good. You played Western Michigan, who's ranked. You played St. Cloud State, who's a top 10 team. You played Maine, who's top 5 to start your Big East, your Hockey East start of your schedule. And BC leaves that part of the schedule 7-1. I know Denver is just by default going to continue being the number 1 team in the country for some reason, but BC really should be. They have shown already in the first couple games of the season that they're the best team in the country. Greg Brown has this team clicking. They're impressive. They're playing extremely well. And they did it again this weekend. Like, their reason why every one of their home games is going to sell out is because they are the best hockey team in college hockey right now. And they're a lot of fun. And if you want more coverage, come over to Eagle Insider. We got BC Hockey Blogger talking about them all the time. Thank you all for listening. On tomorrow's show, we're going to have Mitch Wolf on. He's going to do his full analysis. I am doing this. I'm doing this one on Monday afternoon. If you can't tell, I got another head cold. Great time of the year for allergies, and I can't do this one live or have someone on there because I'll be coughing and hacking a lot. He's going to come on and join me tomorrow. We're going to talk about everything he saw in the game, his thoughts on Grayson James and Thomas Castellanos, and everything else. Follow me here at Twitter on AJBlack247 and check out my work at Eagle Insider. And I love each and every one of you that have subscribed to Locked On BC on YouTube or if you get your podcast. Please continue doing that and tell your friends and family about Locked On Boston College, because your recommendations are more powerful than any algorithm or anything I can say. And I appreciate you who have also spread the word. Thank you all for listening to Locked On Boston College, your team every day.